Thanks, Max. And thanks for bringing together this community of conversation marketeers. I've got a marketing background too, but I'm not a marketeer. I'm an expert around dialogue and conversation. And the reason I'm part of this conference is to help you get a little closer to an authentic dialogue, a stimulating conversation with your customers, clients, and partners. What is stimulating conversation? It's the type of conversation where you want to lean in, you're excited, you feel connected with something. It's something uniquely human. It's the way we work out things. It's when we have a problem, we need to talk it through or sit with it with somebody else and talk it through. So this is an area we've been focusing on for some 20 years. We host conversations with people who are having trouble getting into dialogue or want to improve the way they have dialogue. And we've basically found that there are certain universal behaviors that if we adopt them, we make conversations better. And I think it's possible to adopt them into a technology environment, a digital space like you're working in. So let's give it a shot and see what you could learn about how to make your conversations more stimulating. All right, we've got about 20 minutes. We're going to talk about, stimulating conversation. We're going to have a moment to have you reflect on the conversations you've had that really made a difference and what does that do for you. We will then look at the research, the way we've gone about doing these dialogue experiments and what we've learned from that. And this is going to give you an opportunity to think, what could I take from this? What could I leverage? What idea could I have this? So we'll have a little exchange with your neighbors there online. And then we'll look at the way that we debrief all of these conversations, which is very simple. What helps, what hinders, gets in the way, or what did we learn from it? And my promise is you're going to have an idea, something that you can take away and apply to this. So we'll share those. And of course, there's a freebie at the end. You'll get the tiny book of dialogue. Now, like at any session, it's important to have a kind of a way of working together. And I'd invite you to put some ideas here in the chat. But when we open up our live workshops or with groups or intact teams, we always set some ground rules. And we could use those here too, but this is also a kind of second level, which is if you want to have a dialogue experiment yourself, think about how you're going to be working together. All right. So first is the kind of listening. Conversations are more about listening than they are about talking. So that's an important frame of reference. Those of you who love creative brainstorming, know the philosophy of yes and. So just being present to what is possible, but kind of blocking out a little bit what is not working. So it's not about, oh, we tried that didn't work, we don't like that. It's, oh, okay, and what else? Another thing is assumptions. So what are the things that get in the way of conversations? Assuming that we understand before we really understand the other person. Judging what they say. If you feel judged, it's very unlikely that you're going to open up and share more. So limiting judgment, limiting assumptions, those are some of the things that really help. And big ego, show off, somebody just likes to talk about themselves, that doesn't usually go very far in terms of conversation, nor does taking a quick conclusion. Oh yeah, I get it, I understand. No, probably you need to sit with this a little longer if you really understand. So I would also invite that frame of reference here. Think about, oh, that's an idea I want to sit with, I want to reflect on. I won't judge it too quickly. Okay. So if you want, you might have some other ideas there. Yeah, okay, I see some things happening in the chat already. Great. So let's see. Open mind, exploratory mind. I mean, that's experimenting. Yeah, bouncing ideas back and forth. Yeah, that's what we're after. Great, fantastic. Let's move on a bit. What's in it for you? Well, there's some big reasons why I think you should be thinking about real dialogue. I know you're experts in conversation marketing, but sometimes those things feel a little bit not so real. So some of the benefits: set the tone. So what's the tone of voice of your brand, and what is the how is that going to kind of attract interaction? All right, so that's one thing you're going to get out of this. Second one is bringing your team into focus. So all the different players, from the sales support team to the people who are writing the text that people are seeing, should all have the same kind of idea about what is happening here. And the third one is, yeah, collecting needs. And this is probably the biggest area that we work in. It's focus groups and engaging with the customers and people and stakeholders in a meaningful way that is really giving us more than what we can get just from a survey. When we want to scratch the depth a little, go deeper into, what's really going on with these people. Well, these dialogue experiments, that's a great way to do that. Okay, so let's think about your last conversations, and you can put these comments in the chat. Remember the last really meaningful conversation you had? What were the conditions that made that possible? So what was the atmosphere? What were some of the situation around that said, because the atmosphere was like that, we had this conversation, right? So let's just, take a minute, put it in the chat, and we'll just put a pause on here. Okay, welcome back. Great. Respect, caring, that the other person really cared for me, for us, about the subject. Curiosity is written down there, so great questions, great listening, but that overall, I want to know more, tell me more about that. And these are really very important to create conversations that matter. And we've noticed this, and those fit very much into the trends that we've noticed, and I'll just bring forward 3 of them. Yeah, space, face, and place. So when we talk about space, probably the biggest one, especially for these days, is time. I just don't have time for a big conversation, so don't waste my time. And that's, that can be, time on the watch, but it's also time, mental time. Like, I don't have any space in my head for more big ideas here. So just get back to me another time. It can also be emotional time. Like certain people, like, oh, I don't want to go into a big conversation with you right now because I just don't have the heart for it. Yeah. So all the different sides of time. The face, and I don't mean about like losing face, but I mean more like what face do you have on? What do people see? And even if it's in a kind of digital interface, what do they actually see that's going to help them be receptive? And do you ever notice, like, some people, people always telling them stories, people always telling them problems or their situation, they want to be kind of included in something. It's often to do with the face that they put on. If it's a face of empathy, of curiosity, of listening, the eyes are kind of with you, then you're going to get it. But if you put on your busy face, like, don't bother me, I'm typing, I'm texting, it's not going to open up a big conversation, is it? So that what we see really does impact our ability to open up and talk with each other. And of course, the place. I mean, if you want to have an important conversation with someone who's important to you, you're probably going to go to a special place. Now, it might be private in your home, it might be in a cafe, it might be in a favorite restaurant, over a drink, in a park, on a bench. But generally, good conversations happen in lovely places. They don't happen in a crowded supermarket. They don't happen in, on a bus where everyone keeps to themselves, right? So if you want to bring people into dialogue, think about where you're going to do it. It's kind of obvious, but just makes such a big difference. All right. When we bring people into dialogue, we always end the sessions with 3 questions. And I'd like you to understand that a little bit. Okay, so you can think about the last conversation you had. What helped? And when we do this live, we do it with cards. So we have people fill in things, what helped them. Things like an inclusive atmosphere, or personal touch. Those are the things that helped. Naturally, there are things that hindered. Sometimes we focus on those too much, but like on this one, not everyone wants to contribute. I mean, that's everybody has something to say, but nobody's listening. That doesn't work out very well. A lack of clear roles, like, why are we here? What are we doing? What's this all about? Things like that really get in the way. the topics and questions are unclear, so it really, the way you define the question makes a big difference. And then finally, we ask the group for insights. Now that can be about the content, but also about the process. So things like this one, this person said, you need to really be patient. It's not something that is born immediately. Or another one, less scope means more, right? So keep it simple, keep it straight, and let people digest that. It's better to take one topic and go deeply than try to have 10 topics and not serve justice to it. So that's the way we go about it, right? So let's see some of the results. Yeah? The results come through a process. It's very simple. Basically, we define the question. Now, this is actually the hardest part sometimes. So like, you want to shape a question that will attract energy. Okay, so this question is the invitation. What's the invitation to the conversation? It's a question. And if you think about, I don't know, if maybe you're in love with somebody, like, what's the big question that sometimes you discuss? It's something passionate. It's something exciting. It's something that is open-ended, and there's no one answer, because that's why you need to talk about it. If it was so obvious, you wouldn't have to talk about it. Okay, so we work a lot with the group on what is that question. Often the group shapes the question, but we do work with them. Then we do an experiment, a little bit like we're doing right now, but usually more interactive, more discussion. We might get into pairs or triads or quartets. We do some of the famous techniques like World Cafe or others to bring people into a discussion. It could be 1 hour, it could be 3 sessions of 1 hour. Sometimes if it's a group who's had some kind of trauma or difficulty, we might do a more in-depth process over time. But always the same formula of, set the intention. Why are we here? We're here to improve dialogue and discuss the subject. We go through the same ground rules that we talked about earlier, and then we talk, and that's it. But it's not quite it, because step 3 is the debrief. And that's, for me, that's actually the most important part, is we explore, what helped us, what hindered us, and what have we been learning. And if you're doing a few sessions over time, we'll start with the outputs from the last session as the inputs for the next one. So if there was too much judgment or assumptions in the first session, usually in the second session, we can correct that, and people's behavior shifts, because they know it can be much better if they can keep a more open mind and more exploratory mindset. And then we share the results, and we share the results for a few different reasons. Of course, a lot of people like yourselves are curious, like, okay, what helps, what hinders, what should I do, what shouldn't I do? But also in writing up the results, writing up the story about the thing, we learn a lot. We can observe our own behavior, we can observe each other's behavior, and we can make certain commitments about what we want to do in the future. And we know if we write it down or we take a picture of it, we share it as an illustration or a story, it's much more likely that we're going to hold that commitment, because the people around us are seeing that we're making progress and they hold us to it. And it's exciting too. And you can compare notes, share notes with other people, because there are thousands of these dialogue experiments happening all around the world. And yeah, it's interesting. It's across cultural, it's across different introverts and extroverts, older people, younger people, all types of diversity. And that's actually part of the formula too, is to bring diverse groups together. So those things really help. Yeah. All right. So that's the process we follow. A lot of it is about listening. So if you could take another second in the chat, we're going to put in there, how well do you think you're listening to your customers? 0 is not, 10 is a lot, somewhere in between. Okay, so all right, I see some chats coming up. 3, 4, 5, some questions too. Is this mechanical listening or real listening? Yeah, that's a hard one for us. I mean, for us, it's really the human side, but I know for you, you have a lot of analytics behind it. But okay, let's say 3 to 4, not listening as well as we would like to. Here's some opportunities. Maybe the first are around aligning your organization, aligning your voices. For you, it might be a sales team, but like for example, we work a lot with governments. Governments don't move quickly. There has lots of different departments, lots of different points of view, lots of different agendas. And our job there is to align the perspectives. Okay, so we bring people into conversations, focus groups to explore the subject and then come to some conclusions, but also work on a process that can help them over time, not just with one subject, but with all subjects. We did that also like in medical devices. Okay, so very technology, medical, hospital people working and selling things at hospitals. And the challenge there was the salespeople everyone had a different story. Some of them had a great story, others less good. But even the people with a good story weren't always able to understand or transmit that story to other people. So like a senior salesperson couldn't kind of give the magic away to the younger one to adopt it. So we brought them into conversation about what were the aspects of the story they were telling their customers. And this really helped because then you understand kind of the beginning, middle, the end, the key characters, the climax, the moral of the story. And so conversation and storytelling weaving together. We also did it in the drinks industry with luxury drinks products where you have great marketing campaigns, say in Australia or in Thailand, but how can the people in a different region learn from that? So we use the dialogue as a place of what's working well, and how can we replicate that? So the dialogue experiments were focusing on appreciating what is really working well in one area, packaging it up, and letting other groups learn from that. Okay, so lots of different ways to align the different voices of your organization or the supply chain of people and your kind of marketing departments. Yeah? The other big bucket is gathering needs. There's no better way to gather needs than to bringing people into dialogue. I know you all love surveys, and we love them too because you can kind of very quickly collect things. But sometimes what you collect isn't as meaningful as you want. Maybe you didn't phrase the question exactly the way you wanted to, so the data that you start collecting is not really fine-tuned. So we do that through bringing people together. It can, of course, be digitally together as well, but it's a kind of focus group. For example, we worked with a telecom communications company about their values of team. How do they work together? What are the values they represent? Now, that's not something you can just do in a survey. What do you really believe in? What do you stand for? These are things you got to talk about. Another technology company talking about the next generation of their products and the evolution. So it took kind of a creative leap of faith. You had to go exploring things, and most creativity is a spark between two different things. So bringing diverse groups together, we use a design thinking methodology there. It's better, we ask people to go off individually to think about things and explore, but come together to share, and that's where the ideas and the sparks fly, and it's magic every time. And so it's a way of prototyping, and I'm sure that you're doing things like that yourself. That's the kind of thing we're up to, but I'm curious, for you, what could you do? So we're going to take just a minute. If you're doing this as a recording, you can just take some notes, put it on pause. What are some of the opportunities that you could apply some of this to your area? If you want, go and find somebody and have a coffee with them or give them a call. I'm going to just press this on pause for a moment. All right, welcome back. Let's hear a couple of those ideas. And I get to cheat because I can just read from the chat. So we're not going to hear every single voice, but let's hear. Yeah, so exploring the tone of voice. Brilliant. Yeah. Your written word, the way your characters come up on screen, it can vastly be improved by when that voice, the tone is representative of the brand and kind of, connecting with people in a normal and natural way. With your team, of course, team building, connecting, but also aligning all the different voices of your sales chain. That's really important. And outreach, brilliant, good idea. It's a way to get to know your customers. Okay, let's move on. All right, so what helped those conversations, what hindered, what insights? That's going to be part of your formula that you do when you set the question, you do the experiment, you debrief with these 3 questions, and then you share the results. And please let us know what you come up with. If you need some help, you can download this book. It's in the chat, and you can talk to Max and the team at Conversation Asia to get your own little version. It's made for the digital world. It's a bit of fun. You print it out yourself, and you have to cut it up and sew it together yourself. If you're kids, this is a good opportunity to connect with them in a different way, or with a friend. Get a couple of people together. You can do it. Gives you basically everything we've been talking about and more. So it's all there in the tiny book of dialogue. And that's your chance, really. Go lead your own experiment. And that experiment can be as simple as talking with a friend, but then after reflecting by yourself or with a friend, what helped us, what hindered us, and what did we learn? And guaranteed, if you do that a few times, your conversations do get better. We have all the evidence to show it, but the evidence is really up for you, because better conversations do make your personal world better, but also your product world and your marketing world and your company world better too. It's a more engaging experience, it's real, and it's what makes us human. So if you want to make your services feel a bit more human and authentic, yeah, it's an angle I would suggest. So good luck with your next dialogue experiment. If you have been taking notes, you want to share some of those notes, you can use the hashtags on your screen. Lots of other people sharing these. Usually it's a deeper dialogue. Maybe we've been working on this for a few hours or a few days together, and then people share on all the different social platforms. We're at sharing that dialogue, but hashtag dialogue insights or hashtag helps dialogue or hinders dialogue, and you'll see yeah, a lot of these cards, but also the digital ones. We like to use Mentimeter for that, but you can do it in whichever way. And we count on your creativity to make those dialogue experiments a success and to make your conversation marketing feel a bit more real.